I'm not sure that we have the actual like empirical evidence to say that that once you get your PhD that you don't develop lifelong collaborations, right? Like, I think it's probably really varied. I think some people hold on to some of those relationships that they formed during their PhDs, and some people don't. But I will say, like, I can certainly understand why some people are reticent to hold on to those relationships, because some of those relationships may have been really unproductive, very difficult, very like emotionally challenging, right? There's a lot of power dynamics in the academy. And I know from mentoring dozens of doctoral students that some advisors are really fantastic and some advisors are not. Some advisors give their students a lot of agency, but also direction. And some people, sort of create really toxic, dependent relationships where grad students feel constantly like beat down and never really like they're contributing. And that can feel really icky. Like, why would you want to maintain a relationship with somebody who kind of berated you, constantly? Even if maybe they had like good intentions to try to get you to think better and to be your best self, it doesn't feel good, right? To cultivate or to hold on to a relationship in which you feel really emotionally scarred by. And so, for sure, there are. Those are some of the reasons I think people wouldn't hold on to those relationships. And I think other people, I do try to encourage people, don't like be dependent on your advisor. Really try to have a team of people who are supporting you. When I was in grad school, my advisor was amazing in many ways. And there were ways in which like he wasn't really helpful to me. And so I reached out to other professors. I also reached out to a lot of professors who are emeriti or emeritus status, because they really wanted to engage with students. Like, they were kind of at the part of their career where their legacy is what they're able to pass down to next generations. And so I had coffee with several professors who were like in their 80s and their 90s. And they would read my work and they would give me feedback, and they were like such amazing sources of wisdom. And I didn't have those kinds of like, those power dynamics weren't there in a way, because they had nothing to prove and they had a lot of time for me. So yeah, my advice to people is like, if your relationship with your advisor is not working out, like, make sure you are really diversifying the people who are on your team. And hopefully those relationships will carry on as you pursue your career, regardless of whether you stay in academia or not.
Andrea Grandi, welcome to PhD Lounge, and thank you so much for being my latest guest. And curiously, you're the second postdoc I have on the show. I had another one a couple weeks ago, and you're my second guest as a postdoc. So welcome, and grateful for you to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to be here too.
So thank you so much. And we were talking about previously of job hunting, and just like a few minutes ago, job hunting. Many historians, and I'm an engineering historian, I'm on the hunt for jobs, and you just recommended me to look out for HR jobs. But in your perspective, what, if you have any idea of more or less what jobs people from the field of arts and humanities could do that are non-related to that specific area?
Yeah, 100%. That's a quite common career path as far as I know in the HR field. Yeah, many people come from like history or human science. So something that not only in pharma, in general, in corporate. That's something I saw over and over. So could be a good path for you. Would you like to be on that path?
Honestly, I'd love to do project management and culture. So establishing cultural projects for local communities. And recently I managed a project alongside with other managers and coordinators to establish a podcast. in a local area close to Swansea, where I'm based. And what they wanted to do was to design the project accordingly to the employability rate and mental health of that place. And so it was successful. They've managed to establish a podcast, how to start it from scratch, from design to audio editing, video editing, interviewing techniques. So it was a great experience. So that's what I would love go across the lines, but I can be also flexible. So
Well done. Best of luck for your job hunt and also for your upcoming PhD defense.
Thank you so much. Actually, sorry, the PhD defense, no, because I've done it last year. So I'm just waiting for my graduation ceremony, which will be in 3 weeks. So I apologize if it was a bit of a miscommunication in that sense. But overall, it went great. So I'm officially now a PhD graduate. So just waiting for the ceremony to come, and that's it.
Great. Awesome.
How was it when your PhD graduation ceremony was? How was it like? Is it different from here?
I am not sure how is it in the UK, but we had like this big day a few months after the dissertation, where everyone goes in the room with a black suit and the hats, and then there is the dean of the university who makes the inspirational speech, and then everyone takes the hat off and launches in the air. They do pictures. No, it's nice. It was very nice. It was very nice. Did you do something similar?
I did with when I went to my graduation ceremony of my master's degree, and it was a welcoming induction from the dean, and the process was quite simple. They would call us one by one. We had an announcer. We would walk off the stage. We would clap as usual. We would do the salute to the vice chancellor, or the dean in this case, and outside we did not do the throwing. That was optional, but I did the hat throwing. I'll do the hat throwing, and then just like doing some pictures with my friends, my parents, sorts of that thing.
Awesome. Yeah, it's quite similar.
Yeah. So speaking of your PhD and also your postdoc, how was it like to do it, and what sort of a click you felt that maybe academia is not my go-to, but rather industry, and then how that led you to establish your own business? You say Dr. G Development, which is kind of it's a great name. It feels like some sort of Dr. G as in 50 Cent style and all, so sort of it. That's what I came to my mind. So don't take it as an insult, but I found it quite interesting.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that. Dr. G is like Dr. Grandi is Dr. G, and it's drug development. You know what we do in pharma is drug development, so it sounds like drug development. This is the job. But thank you for your question. So my PhD was in pharmacology, and specifically in the field of gastrointestinal diseases. And my postdoc was also in pharmacology, but focused on respiratory diseases. So when I defended my PhD, I already knew that I wanted to move into industry.
Yes.
I really couldn't see the postdoc I had been offered like something leading anywhere long term. I accepted it because it was in a collaboration with a couple of companies in the respiratory field, one of which eventually became the company where I ended up working for 6 years. And I was genuinely interested in the project. And I also wanted to publish a paper or two from the work I had been doing during the PhD. So this is what I thought. I thought like I will do 1 year of postdoc, look for an industry job, and during that year, and then move on. I honestly thought that was going to be easy. Instead, I ended up in what I now call the postdoc black hole. As soon as I started my postdoc, I also started applying for industry positions, right? But it was incredibly hard. It was so hard. For 18 months, which is a year and a half, I couldn't get a single job offer. I don't want to scare you if you're going into the job hunt. You're going to, but I was just doing terrible back then. And I had maybe, on a span of 18 months, I had maybe 3 interviews, like one for a diabetes scientist position at Sanofi, another one with Philip Morris, which interestingly, they were interested in my work because my PhD focused on nicotinic receptors, and nicotine has been investigated for some inflammatory bowel diseases. And the third interview was for Telethon Foundation, which is an Italian charity. So throughout that entire period, I never questioned whether industry was the right move. I wanted something more dynamic. I wanted to work on therapies that could have a real impact on patients. I wanted more financial stability. And most importantly, I didn't see many of the postdocs around me building the career that I wanted. Like most people eventually moved into industry, or they got stuck in what seemed like an endless loop of postdocs and of temporary contracts and this kind of stuff. So I knew since the very beginning that industry was where I wanted to be. The problem was simply that my approach wasn't working. So after 18 months, I remember thinking like, okay, this doesn't work. I need to change something. And I completely changed my strategy. I became much more structured and intentional in my job search, and I applied this new strategy for the following month, and everything changes to the point that in 2019, I signed 2 job offers in the span of 6 months. Oh. So yeah, the first one was with AGC Biologics, which is a biotech company. And the second one was with Chiesi Group, which is a global pharmaceutical company, a world-leading pharmaceutical company in the respiratory field. And by the way, this is essentially the same transition process that I now teach inside my 8-week accelerator coaching program. And now, how did that eventually lead to Dr. G development? That happened many years later. Because I spent 6 years working in pharma, in Chiesi. And during the last couple of years, I became increasingly interested in coaching because I realized that the struggle that I experienced wasn't unique to me. I saw like every postdoc I met seemed to be facing the same challenges. So I was still living in the same city where I did my PhD and postdoc, which is Parma in Italy. And I stayed in touch with many people from academia, and most of them were still stuck in the same transition stage. So at some point I thought, and also I saw a lot of PhD students and postdocs coming across the lab where I was working, and they were all stuck at the end of their PhD. So during my 5th year in pharma, I started volunteering for Johns Hopkins University in the US, in Baltimore. And they were looking for some industry professionals to help their postdocs navigate the transition into industry careers. So I spent a couple of years doing that for a couple of hours per month. And that's where something really clicked. Because these were postdocs working in another country, in a different continent. And they were facing exactly the same problems that I had experienced myself, and also the same problems that I had seen among other postdocs in Italy or in Europe. So I realized how global the challenge really was. And over those 2 years at Hopkins, I also started understanding much more clearly what actually works during the transition process and what does not work. And so eventually I decided to launch my own coaching business and create my own coaching program. And so when I started about 6 months later, which is now around 9 months ago now,
wow, congratulations.
I decided to leave my R&D career completely and focus full time on helping postdocs successfully transition into pharma.
Wow. So that's quite of a long stretch you had, and then working around. What have you learned from those 18 months of trying to transitioning you've already said you wanted industry, but then you sought how to tailor that strategy to get into industry fast, but at the same time in an effective manner. So probably that's most of post PhDs, postdocs struggle in trying to find a strategy to get to where they actually want. But maybe I've seen lots of content from such as yourself and many other users that most of the times is just not the CV, it's just not the cover letter. It is a risk assessment. It is something that it goes beyond, or maybe is the lack of industry experience. Don't you think that also influences the prospective career of a postdoc in this regard? And that's where you go in helping them.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Moreover, writing feedback also pushes the supervisor to communicate better with the student if they write it in an oriented-based way, in the sense that it has to be professional and academic, which teaches the student to figure out a different approach to address the argument, reflecting too if the supervisor discusses the feedback verbally with the student. The more feedback the supervisor gives in a research proposal, but from an oriented-based, as well as balanced and constructive perspective, the more the student is likely to engage with and figure out alternative ways to address the academic gap while writing the research proposal effectively to submit it afterwards.
Yeah, 100%. No, first of all, appreciate you highlighting that it was a long journey, because I was thinking earlier while speaking with you, like I graduated from my PhD in 2017, so it's almost 10 years.
Wow.
That I'm in this.
I was finishing my undergrad at the time.
It's a long time. So all this thing that I'm doing right now is like 10 years in the making, like learning first by going through myself and then teaching to others.
Sure.
And I completely agree with you that what most people think is the problem, it's very often the problem is something deeper. So honestly, my accelerator comes from basically from experience, the 10 years in the making, and from experimental mindset. Like, I always say, once a scientist, always a scientist.
Yes.
Right? So over the years, I tried different approaches and observed what was working and kept doing more of what worked and stopped doing what wasn't working, right? So when I first started coaching, what I was offering was like 1 hour CV review sessions, because that's what people wanted.
Yeah.
And honestly, I am not offering those sessions anymore. Not because they didn't. I mean, people were happy with the feedback. They were saying like, I finally understand how to write my CV. But there was a problem. So not a single person found a job in industry because of a 1 hour CV review alone. Not a single one. So that made me realize something very important, and that is the CV is only a small piece of the transition. Like, most postdocs don't struggle because they don't know how to format a CV. They struggle because they don't know how to position themselves for pharma roles. They don't know which roles to target. They don't know how to tailor their applications. They don't know how to network. They don't know how to interview. And they don't know how to build a strategy that actually generates interview consistently, like an interview generating strategy. So working for a couple of years at Hopkins, helping their postdocs, made a huge impact on my thinking. Like, their transition program was 3 months long, and it gave me the opportunity to work with many postdocs over a long period of time. And that's where I started to understand that what people really need in order to make significant progress and successfully transition into industry. And over time, I found that 8 weeks is really like the minimum amount of time needed to work through all the key elements of a successful transition. That's enough time to build a clear strategy. It's enough time to implement it consistently. It's enough time to receive feedback, to make adjustments, and start generating the interviews that will eventually lead to job offers. So that's why I created the 8-week accelerator, not just because 8 weeks sounds like a nice number, right? It's 8 weeks because through experience and through data and through experiments, that's the shortest time frame I've found that consistently allows people to make meaningful process. And to your point, the number one issue that my postdoc clients share with me, and this is also something like you mentioned that I talk about a lot, especially on LinkedIn. So when postdocs reach out to me, I typically ask them one question. And the question is like, what do you believe is currently holding you back from making this transition happen? So what do you believe is currently holding you back from making this transition happen? And around 90% of them give me one of these answers. They either say, oh, the market is very bad right now. Or they say, I can't figure out how to do my CV. And I want to be clear. These are all real considerations.
Yeah, which is true. But I want also to point on that it is, while it is true, it's better to ignore that and maybe just learn what you can improve. Maybe.
Yeah, yeah. But it's not so. I mean, of course, I agree with you. It's not so easy when you are on the other side, because having been on the other side, I probably made these assumptions too. But the market can be difficult, and it probably is. But the CV does matter. But after coaching 60 plus postdocs on their transition, I found that like these are rarely the real blockers. But let's start with the market. Like as you said, you cannot change it. We can spend hours with experts of economy, of pharma, discussing how the market will be next year. Nobody knows. No, probably it's not going to be much better than now, but really nobody knows. So how can that help you? And your CV, in the end of the day, a CV for a pharma position, it's a 2-page PDF.
Yeah.
So like if a 2-page PDF were really the main blocker after a PhD, multiple postdocs, years of publishing scientific papers, you would have figured it out by now how to do it, right? Of course, it matters. The CV needs to communicate your value. It needs to be clear. It needs to include metrics. It needs to speak the language of pharma. It needs to be tailored for the job description. But that is not enough. So if the market and the CV are not the real problem, they're not the real blockers, what are they? So from my experience, coaching scientists for the 8-week accelerator, the real blockers are usually very different. So at the very beginning of the program, we identify the roles that are the best fit for my clients, and then we work on their CV to make sure that it is tailored to these roles. This is essential. And honestly, every single one of them can learn how to do this. Like week 2 or 3 in the program, they perfectly know how to do the CV.
Yeah.
And that's not the end. That's where the work starts, actually, because learning the mechanics is just the beginning. Like the real work starts afterwards, because the real blockers are usually at least one of these 3. And the first one is overcoming the fear of rejection. The second one is dealing with the rejections once they happen, because they will happen a lot. And following a structure consistently, like every single day, trusting the process, following the process. So most people already know what they should do. They know what they need to do. They need to target the right roles. They need to tailor the CV. They need to write the cover letter. They need to network. They need to apply. They need to prepare for interviews. The difficult part isn't learning these things. The difficult part is repeating them consistently, even when the first 20 applications turn into 20 rejections, which can happen. It happened to me, but it will happen to most people. That's why I think teach my clients to think in terms of pipeline, like keep applying when you are interviewing, keep interviewing while you're waiting for feedback. Just like in pharma, you need assets at every stage of the R&D because failure is part of the process. And ironically, this is where most people who are trying to do this alone eventually got stuck. Because instead of doing the uncomfortable work, they end up studying the markets. So they tweak the CV like 100 times. So these activities feel like productive, but they often become a way of avoiding the work that actually create results. So if you're a postdoc right now listening and you're interested in moving to the industry or to pharma, the next time you find yourself saying, my problem is the CV, the market is too bad right now, I would like you to ask yourself this. So the question is, have I actually identified the real blocker, or am I just focusing on the easiest one to blame?
That is a great point, and I think there are many people who can't deal with rejection. They often fear it. It's just like in any other aspect, professionally speaking, and in a personal standpoint as well. But I do think that most of us, myself included, is the lack of clarity, the lack of structure of what do you want actually to do. And you can be flexible in many ways, but creating that pipeline, Andrea, is so valuable of saying what you actually want, but at the same time, how you're going to respond to it, which is so important nowadays, despite all of these blockers, as you said. And creating that structure of that pipeline and doing the process of networking, process of doing something on LinkedIn, consulting career advisors as well. That is all part of the process. I mean, that's a good thing when I've learned on my PhD and consulting different people in the of the careers at university, at Swansea University, where I graduated from, and they also help. They provide lifetime access, and obviously those activities like the tailoring of the CV, all of that. But they also help on structuring, creating a pipeline of what you actually want, and that's so valuable. So I do believe also that the structure is something that is the third one and the most important one, and it's great that you point out to that alongside those other two remaining blockers. So
yeah, 100%.
So so you said they do the CV, and then the real work, the real progress starts on dealing with that, taking out of the fear and then making it into the structure. And do you have any sort of approach for them to start changing the mindset to overcome those common barriers into successful achievements?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Now, for the bonus, stand-up comedy. That's right. You can participate in stand-ups and share your research by mixing it with humor and satire. It's an alternative yet bold to engage your thesis towards lay audiences, where a strong reading of the room, your personality, and human connection are a must to boost your confidence and communication.
Okay, this is a great question. So this is how it typically works inside the Biotech accelerator. So we develop both the practical side and the mindset.
Yeah.
So because these days, if you want to find a job in pharma or biotech, it is imperative to do both. Like we always start with a self-assessment, which is one of the most important exercise in the program because it helps my postdoc clients to go much deeper than their CV. And one of them told me recently that this exercise was way more challenging than reviewing his own paper. And I get it, like, because scientists are investigators, but the one thing we often struggle investigating is ourselves. So this self-assessment allows them to identify their values, their life and career goals, their key strengths that they can leverage in the job search, and the areas of improvement that they need to manage, or the new skills that they need to develop to have a successful transition. So everything starts from there. And the purpose of this exercise is to completely shift their mindset about the transition. So most postdocs come to me asking, this is my background. Where do I fit in industry? It's probably one of the most common questions I receive. But I believe it's the wrong question. Instead, after the self-assessment, the question becomes, this is who I am. These are my goals. These are my strengths. These are the things that I need to improve. Among all the countless career paths available in pharma and biotech, which one is actually the best fit for me? It's a completely different perspective. Can you see the difference? It's completely flipped. And instead of trying to fit yourself into the market, you start looking for the part of the market that fits you. And there will be. And you're going to be way more successful because it's going to feel like a natural fit. So once we have done that exercise, we normally identify 2 or 3 target roles. And from that moment on, the entire job search becomes focused around these 2 or 3 roles. Because nothing is more confusing for recruiters than someone applying to everything that remotely matches their background, right? Recruiters can typically tell immediately whether an application is intentional or whether someone is simply applying everywhere. That's their job.
Yeah.
And once the postdocs that I help have identified their target roles, then I give them a weekly application target, like a structure they have to follow, and I keep them accountable. But that doesn't mean I punish them if they don't do the application they need to do. But if they miss it, we simply try to understand what happened, what's the root cause, what can we do to make it work next week, what got in the way, what can we change to make sure that in the following weeks we're going to get to the results that we both want. And then we move to the CV and the cover letter. And as people start becoming more and more confident with those, something interesting typically starts happening. Many of them still hesitate before clicking submit. So they know how to do the CV, but still they send it to me and say, can you review it one time more before I apply? And this is usually where I stop them. I can tell them, no, you apply first. Because if I'm doing something else, it's going to take me maybe 3 or 4 hours to reply to you. And in those 3 or 4 hours, hundreds of other candidates with an imperfect CV may have already submitted their applications. And instead of being candidate number 100, you're now candidate number 300. And now your chances of getting your CV even screened by someone are getting close to 0. At that point, the problem is not your CV. The problem is timing. So I encourage them to submit first and then send me the CV afterwards. If I see that there is something that needs to be improved, tomorrow they can implement the changes, and the next application, they implement the changes. Interestingly enough, when this happens, most of the time I don't have any comments. The CV was not the problem. It was good. The fear was the problem. The fear of rejection was the problem. Yeah. It was a decision-making problem. That's a pattern I see over and over again, that the postdocs aren't waiting because the CV isn't ready. They're waiting because they are afraid of being rejected by the application. And of course, the fear of rejection is completely normal.
Yes.
We are humans. We are social animals.
Yeah.
And everyone experiences it. And the goal is not to eliminate the fear of rejection. The goal is to make sure that it doesn't stop you from taking action. And while all of this is happening, we also work on LinkedIn and networking and keep applying every single week. And eventually, at some point, when they do a certain amount of application, inevitably, rejection email starts arriving. Usually, lots of them. We are pursuing with a different candidate who is a better fit for the role. We are pursuing with a different candidate who has more industry experience. So at the beginning of the program, people is typically excited, right?
Yeah.
They are improving the CV, they're learning things, they are excited. And then reality hits. The rejections start coming in. And this is probably the hardest stage of the entire transition. And it's also the point where I believe that most people quit when they try to do this transition alone. Because this is exactly when you need someone reminding you that nothing has gone wrong. This is just how this process works. That's why every Wednesday in the program, we meet during our group coaching call and we celebrate the rejections of my students. It sounds strange at first, but there is reason. There is a neuroscience reason. The only way to get more interviews and to get more jobs is to submit more applications. Yeah. And the only way to get more offers is to attend more interviews. So over the past 2 years, if there is one predictor of success that I have consistently observed, is the number of rejections. After someone accumulates enough application rejections, I start becoming fairly confident that they are entering interviews territory. And after enough interview rejections, I become increasingly confident that we are in offer territory. So rejection is not evidence that the process isn't working. Very often is the evidence that you are finally doing something and you are in the game. And helping people normalize the rejection and continue trusting the process is probably one of the biggest mindset shift we work on. And finally, we prepare for interviews. We run the mock interviews. Mm-hmm. We practice answering very difficult questions. And that's where we work on confidence. And that's usually when everything starts coming together. Something incredible happened over the last couple of months. So 2 of my clients received a job offer the very first time they reached the final interview stage. But the interview process is typically very long. It takes several weeks.
Sure.
And there are multiple stages. One of them actually received 2 final interview reached 2 final interview stages and received 2 offers. After their interviews, after the final stage, they both told me, I think I'm going to get the job. And I was I was thinking in my mind, I was like, don't say it. Let's wait until it's official. I wasn't telling them this because I was like, dude, you're gonna get rejection because this is how the process works. This is the first time you get it to the last stage. So, and looking back, I realized something that I was surprised by them getting an offer after the first time they went to the final stage. Oh, wow. But not because they weren't good enough, not because they were not prepared, but because I was projecting my own fears, my own past experience, because I got rejected at the final stage multiple times, and I know how that hurts. So it was it was strange. But in the end, they both got the offer, the first time they got at the final stage. And so they didn't have to go through this final stage rejection. But without even realizing, I was carrying out my past experiences and my past trauma, into my coaching. And this story reminded me that their story doesn't have to be the same as mine. They were very well prepared. They trusted the process and they succeeded at the first time. So if I had to summarize how we build the mindset, I would do it like this. So first we identify the clarity on which career fits you rather than trying to fit yourself into a career. Second, we make decisions quickly instead of overthinking every application. Third, we don't let fear of rejection stop you from taking action. And fourth, we normalize rejections. We even celebrate them because it's part of the process. And finally, we build confidence through preparation, practice, and repeated exposure until interviews become something you look forward rather than something that you fear.
Yeah, that is a great approach, and I mean, congrats to those two clients of yours who managed to get a job offer, and it's a great way of working, Andrea. And I think once anyone who are struggling can understand how this works, it's way more higher chances of getting a job offer. I do like to think as well, and I always keep a big smile on my face that saying I got 50 job applications, I get rejected 50 times, but I do believe that of those 50 times, there will be other 50 times where I will get chances of getting interviews. And so this is just a constant loop where it's sort of a rinse repeat process where, okay, when I've applied, we'll see what will happen. I apply for another one and see how it goes. If it isn't this way, if they reject on that occasion, then another opportunity will come. And it's how it works, from what you said. And sometimes we must learn and how to be more successful for the next job application, and with the potential of, in the hopes of potentially get an interview.
Yeah, it's abundance mindsets, right? Like, as opposed to scarcity mindset, you don't have only that opportunity. You want to create like a pipeline of opportunities. So if that one doesn't go, you're gonna have another one there.
How many job applications do your clients do when working on your 8-week accelerator program? Do you have a sort of a limit?
What they should do is 4 to 5 applications per week. And like only the best students can. It's not easy. It's because most of them are also working like as a full-time postdoc, so they don't have much time. But that's what they should do, and only the best students are actually hitting the target consistently.
Okay, no, that's great, and I think is quality applications do sound better than quantity. I mean, how in your perspective and based on your experience, what would be best in applying with quality applications in terms of numbers? So you'd be 5 or be 10 or be 20. Is that should be there a specific number of applications per day or per week?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
As I tend to see it, the whole point of a presentation is to make your audience see something that they didn't see before, right? And hopefully in a profound way, because if it's just an easy announcement that's not difficult to explain, why not just send a simple email or write a short memo about it? So the whole point of making a presentation or preparing a larger piece of communication is to make your audience see something that they didn't see before. And that means that means a couple of steps that are immediately derived from that. First of all, you need clarity about what is that actually? What do I need them to see? And you'd be surprised to learn how few people, not exclusively, but particularly in the science community, wouldn't be able to say that, to give a concise answer to that. So what is it that you actually want your audience to see? So, and once you've nailed that or have clarity for yourself what that is, you can ask the second question. So why don't they see it already? What do they see? What do they see that I don't? And what do they miss that I see already? And once you have that, you can kind of build a path between those 2 points. And the ultimate goal of a presentation is to lead them to what I would call the point of no return, which would probably coincide with that aha moment where where you've told them everything that helps them really see what you wanted to make them see, where there is no coming back, no going back for them, because they've seen it in a way that they cannot unsee it anymore, and where it makes total sense because you've explained it in a way that makes sense, using words that they can understand, using images and metaphors that they are familiar with.
Yes, something that is more exactly. It's more something that they are more familiar with, something that is more common as they've seen, whether on TV or on YouTube. Something, in a sense, it's more of a touristic point of view. It's kind of like when they go to an event, they're attending a speaker, and you feel like I'm a tourist here, and I want to hear what you have to say. And then something comes up, and they say something that sparks them, and I say, "Aha, that's what I want to know." And so basically,
and that is a that is a great approach, and that is so starkly different to what most people do. So most people, when I ask them how they would go about preparing a presentation, they tell me similar things. They first of all, they start with a presentation that they've already given a couple of weeks ago, and then they fill up all the other details that have come up since, and so until they discover, whoa, that's way too much information for 25 minutes. And then they start cutting, and it's still too much. And so basically they have that problem of overwhelming their audience because there's so many things that are interesting and great and fascinating about my field, which makes sense. I mean, you're doing a PhD about it. You're researching 5 years on it. Of course, there's more interesting things to say about it than you've got time to say it.
Yes.
But that approach that you've outlined is a very different approach, where you basically turn that upside down and you don't even bother about all the things that you can say, but only ask yourself, what is that one thing that makes that tourist look over, come closer, and think to themselves, well, that is interesting. I want to know more about that.
Sure.
And so getting clarity and starting there. So what is that one thing? And often it's really literally one thing only.
It's a great question. Honestly, what we saw over the past 2 years is it's like 5 applications per week over 8 weeks, and then you can continue implementing the process alone after the program ended. Is like the minimum that has significant chances to get you consistent interviews. Of course, the more you do, the better it is. There is no limit.
Sure.
But you have to at least do those 4 to 5 applications per week, and not just 1 week or 2 weeks. You have to do them every week.
Every week. And I agree with you. And at the same time, can you imagine how applying for 100 jobs in a space of a week, how your brain gets drained so emotionally of so much applications without having a single orientation?
No, I wouldn't recommend that. No, of course, you super stressed. You don't really. No, it's too much. If you are applying for 100 positions per week, I would think you're just spraying your brain. You're applying to everything that's.
Yeah.
It seems like a good fit, so I wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah, that I think many of the clients have already probably have tried to do that, and when they speak to you, then they probably change their mindset. As you said, they will change. They change their mindset completely. And for those who are hearing to this late night talk, I think find the strategy. Talk with someone. Doesn't have to be like an intentional networking. You are subconsciously you're networking, but having a conversation in the hopes of getting a job. At least many of us try to do that. But yes, it is hard. I'm also on the job hunt by just keep myself smiling every single time, doing other stuff to occupy myself. And I think you've probably did that as well when you were on the job hunt.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah. And so, because we were speaking of
networking and this process of repeating insightful content about their expertise, connecting people within their fields. And then when you work with them, what did they learn from doing this whole process during your 8-week accelerator program? You've already shared your story of 2 of your clients, but what can they learn? What did they learn, and how can we learn from it?
Yeah, great question. So I genuinely believe like the LinkedIn and networking part of my 8-week accelerator program is one of the most important parts of the program. Because nowadays I do believe that LinkedIn is becoming more important than the CV.
How so?
LinkedIn is becoming more important than the CV. The recruiters spend a lot of time on LinkedIn and very few seconds screening CVs, by the way. At the same time, so LinkedIn and networking are also part of the part of the program that most of my students struggle with the most. And I completely understand why. Like, I'm glad you mentioned like posting consistently insightful content. I am a big believer in posting consistently. If you're in the job hunt, of course, you don't need to become an influencer, but if you can post regularly, let's say even just once per week, it can help you immensely. But that said, most of the students in my program don't feel comfortable doing it. And I think for very understandable reasons.
Yeah.
I assume that many of them are still working as postdocs or in hospital, and maybe they just don't want people from their current workplace to know that they are actively looking for another job. Of course, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So posting is something I recommend, but it's definitely not a mandatory part of the program. And in fact, I would say that most of my clients in the accelerator don't post regularly. So at the same time, they still learn how to use LinkedIn strategically to boost their job search without posting. Because LinkedIn is much more than just a content platform. It's an incredible networking tool. It's a place where you can start conversations, start building relationships, and create opportunities. What I strongly recommend is sending DMs, like the direct messages on LinkedIn. Not everyone has to know you're looking for a job, but your profile needs to be spot on. It needs to be tailored for your target roles. It has to clearly position you for the target role and speak directly to recruiters. You're not speaking to academics, you're not speaking to your PI, you're not speaking to peer reviewers. You're speaking to recruiters. And you need to be consistent with your outreach, sending DMs. I also encourage my client to leave thoughtful comments on posts from people in their field, especially those with high visibility. That may help. But the direct message is the DM part is absolutely crucial. So inside the program, I teach a framework that makes networking very sustainable. It takes around 15 minutes per day. It's the one that I learned myself when I needed to network, but I felt like I didn't have the time because I was very busy with my work.
Yeah.
And so my clients know exactly who they need to contact, who they need to reach out to, and what they need to write, like exactly the words they need to use to approach those conversations. And if they stay consistent, and if they can do this just like one DM per day over 8 weeks, it's like, you see, it can generate a lot of conversations, valuable information, and it will likely lead to some referral and eventually maybe even interviews. And I'm really happy about you asking about some success stories about this, because I had just one just last week. One of my clients landed a role as project manager, And she told me that networking played like a crucial role in getting the job. And she had been consistently building relationships on LinkedIn. Even in the weeks that didn't seem to bring anywhere, she kept going. And that eventually led to an interview and then to an offer. And also another client who had never had a single industry interview before joining the program. After just 3 weeks in, he optimized his LinkedIn profile to make it much more compelling for his target role. He hadn't even applied for a position yet, and he was contacted directly from a recruiter from Big Pharma.
Oh,
And
wow.
they scheduled an interview with him. And he was like surprised. He didn't expect that. He wasn't ready.
Wow.
He thought, like, what do I do now? Now you gotta go. You gotta have the interview. This is so. He didn't even apply.
Jeez.
You see, and another client, like she reached out to a recruiter in Germany in Big Pharma, and she was told that, look, the position you are trying to apply is already closed. But however, during the conversation, the recruiter mentioned that another role, a different one that hadn't been advertised yet, was actually a better fit. So they had a conversation, they had a chat between each other, and that turned into a completely new opportunity for her. So there are many success stories that come from LinkedIn, even when they aren't directly related to posting content. And some of the things that most of my clients after the program say, I didn't expect networking and LinkedIn to be so important. Of course, it's even better if you can post consistently.
Yeah.
That's even better. But if for any reason you cannot or you don't want to post, you don't feel comfortable enough doing it, LinkedIn is still an incredible, powerful tool. It can help you immensely. But the key is you have to learn how to use it strategically. And that's exactly what we teach inside the 8-week accelerator. You don't have to be an extrovert. You don't have to be a social media expert. Honestly, I'm not a social media person either. Like, I don't have Facebook. I don't have X. I use Instagram very little.
Yeah.
The only platform I've really learned how to use is LinkedIn. And I had a LinkedIn account for almost 12 years before I started posting consistently. So for 12 years, I didn't post. So I completely understand the fear of posting and putting yourself out there. The first post I posted, like, I was so scared. So I completely understand that.
When was it? If you have it in memory?
It went off a lot of time ago. It was like November 2024.
Oh, okay.
It was like 1.5 years ago.
Wow. I mean, I do believe that LinkedIn is a powerful network and a powerful networking tool. And I, well, same as you, Andrea, I'm not a big social media thing. And I had Facebook, but I don't use it anymore. And I use LinkedIn for just posting some stuff. I don't post it regularly, because now I've been busy with one thing. But when a new podcast comes out, such as this one, I will post something, and then after that, I complete ghost myself, but not to see the likes, not to see the metrics, and all that. But having that feeling of, okay, at least I've shared something about my knowledge about content that I think people will eventually hear. You don't need to confirm through a like or through a comment that, oh, you've reached out. So that there's actually the automated system that they do on LinkedIn, those post impressions. It is okay. So probably they are hearing. So I do think that LinkedIn is a great tool, and it takes you to opportunities as long as you create them.
Of course.
So
Of course, you have to be proactive and consistently creating opportunities.
Yeah, proactivity, and keeping the consistency, doing something engaging that you also like to do, rather than being forcing yourself to do so, because otherwise then you won't be able to do. And that's how it works. And I do wonder as well, Andrea, you've been featured in other shows, and you've been sharing your work. How was it like to be and on other shows, on other podcast interviews.
It was great. It was nice. I always loved those. The things that you do, guys, it's like amazing. Having a podcast. I mean, I would also love to have one, but it's so much work that I cannot even think about getting started. So I really have a big admiration on what you all guys are trying to do. I do believe that podcasts are like a super effective way of communicating nowadays. There are now a lot of podcasts. I'm very happy to share my knowledge. And I'm very grateful for you, Luis, and for many others that are trying to share their knowledge in this format.
Yeah, I'd like to put that question because I've been hearing this last one you've been. I heard also other ones that you were featured on. And I noticed on one of the podcast episodes that you were on someone's podcast, and you said something that it was really interesting to hear. And I'd like to bring that up, that if I don't know if you have in memory, but I do believe that you've mentioned that when someone, PhD, postdoc in pharma or any related field, gets their first job, but it's not actually their dream job, you said something quite like that having this first job of yours doesn't need to be your dream job. And so that was on my mind, and I say maybe he could share some thoughts about this.
Of course, careers nowadays are no longer linear as they used to be.
Yes.
You know, people change jobs. But I believe that you are a job hunt right now, right?
Yes.
So for your first job, statistics says from experts says that you're going to change jobs like 15, 16 times throughout your career. You're going to work a lot of years. So, of course, how can the first job be the job of your life? It could be, but it's not like, it's like with dating, right? It's very rare that you marry your first girlfriend or your first boyfriend, right?
Yeah.
So, the thing is, what industry, I believe that I remember what you are referring to is that what industry values the most, especially in pharma, is the industry experience. So getting a job in industry, even if that's not your dream job, allows you to get this industry experience, and it will make switching jobs much easier. I'm not saying it's going to be a walk in the park, but it's going to be significantly easier than landing the first job. It was the same for me. So my first job was in GMP manufacturing of gene therapies in Biotech. It was not anywhere near my dream job, but it gave me so much. I learned so much about how industry works. I started getting into how the process works, how are the frameworks, how is the pace much faster than academia. And so finding my job in pharma, which was my second job, was much easier than finding the first role. It took me 2 years to find the first role, 6 months to find the second role. You know, and the experience that I had, I believe it was one of the critical factors that led the company to hire me. I applied to the same company like 6 times during my postdoc. They always ghosted me 6 times. So this is also a reminder for all of you listening: don't give up. Once I had the industry experience, they hired me. So nothing else changed. It was just 6 months later. So getting the industry experience is very important. So if the first job will not be like the job of your dreams, but it still leads you closer to your goals, I would 100% go for it. The one question that I typically ask my clients is, go back to your self-assessment where you have written down your 3 years goals and ask yourself, will this new job bring me closer or more far away from where I want to be 3 years from now?
And I think that is a great question, and I think many of us should think about it and look back. Even if you have great experience that can leverage your way into the job of your dreams, as you say so, I think having that self-assessment is truly important. And I think we could also ask that question of how these experiences we had so far during our PhD, after our PhD, during the postdoc, and afterwards, how will that lead to become a better professional, and in order to reach what we actually want. So,
100%.
yeah. All right, Andrea, I think this has been a great conversation, and I'd like to ask you final questions of what advice do you have for PhDs and now in this case postdocs who are struggling with the job market right now, and then where can follow your work?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Great question. I speak with postdocs because I work specifically with postdocs, but I believe it will apply also for PhDs as well.
Yeah.
And if I have to wrap it up in one single piece of advice, it would be like, think less, do more. Like, I recently heard an Italian creator, I think on Instagram, she was saying this in the context of personal growth, but after coaching more than 60 postdocs transitioning into pharma, I think it applies perfectly also to career transitions too. So one of the biggest traps is that people feel productive when in reality they are not moving forward at all. Like, you buy another course, you organize your notes, you highlight another book, you complete another certification, you watch another webinar. And at the end of the day, it feels like you have worked hard, but nothing has actually changed, because the transformation doesn't happen when you consume more information. It does not happen because you have completed a project management certification. Transformation does not happen because you took a GXP course. Those things can be helpful, but they rarely create the breakthrough by themselves. The real change happens when you change who you are. And that requires uncomfortable actions, like having difficult conversations, putting yourself out there, applying before you feel ready, networking with strangers, getting rejected multiple times, working with a coach or maybe with a therapist who can challenge your thinking instead of simply validating it, choosing experiences that force you to grow. Like, ironically, some of the most stuck people I've ever met are also the most organized.
Yeah.
Like, everything is color coded, everything is labeled, everything is optimized, but nothing meaningful happens because most people have convinced themselves that preparing is the same as doing. It's not. Preparation has value, but at a certain point, it becomes another form of procrastination. It's like spending 3 hours to getting ready for a date and never actually leave the bathroom or the house to go to a date. So preparing for the date is not the date. At some point, you gotta get out the door, right?
Yeah.
So I don't really have advice for the PhDs and postdocs listening today. I only have one question for you. The question is this: are you truly working on your career, or are you just getting ready to start? Embrace the discomfort, embrace the change, embrace the growth, and let go of the version of yourself that is keeping you exactly where you are.
I think that's something that many of us will resonate, and I'll absorb that as well, and and I will keep being active, non-stopping, networking around, doing what I can and many others can, but without feeling overstressed, feeling overwhelmed
Of
the
course.
whole thing. So where can they follow your work, Andrea? And on social media as well.
Yeah, thank you. It's on LinkedIn, basically. Most of my work is on LinkedIn. My page is Andrea Grandi PhD, and I also have a new website which just came out. It's drgrandiphd.com. So make sure you follow the website. You find all the information, and also on the LinkedIn, I share posts every day about the postdoc to pharma transition.
And I think we can wrap it up. So, Andrea, thank you so much for showing and sharing valuable insight, and I think many of us will likely resonate with. And for the listeners, just reach out to to Andrea Grandi and his work. He's on LinkedIn. He also has Dr. G development, and he'll be glad to help you out and to stand out as well. So thank you so much for coming. And for the students and graduates listening to this late night talk, thank you all for tuning in, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
And being like, okay, this is the animal, this is how you can interact with it, this is what happens, and try to do much of the same is take you with me. And it's all very much kind of quite casual, I guess, in the diary format. And it started actually not even as film or as videos or anything like that. It started as articles. I used to write articles for magazines.
Okay.
It started at school, actually, when I was back in Spain. Then when I moved to boarding school in England, I wrote for the school magazine.